Spanakopita, usually made with spinach and feta and lots of herbs like dill, but I'm going to change it up today by using some mushrooms. Mushrooms are so versatile, and this Spanakopita really stands out, particularly if you're a mad mushroom lover like I am. Now, I'm using 3 varieties of Aussie mushrooms here. Some button mushrooms. I love these little button mushrooms because they're firm in texture and they're mild in flavour. I've also got these gorgeous portobello mushrooms, which are, in fact, a bigger version of the Swiss brown mushroom. So they've got that distinct brown colour to them, and they've got an earthier, deeper flavour. Now, when it comes to your mushrooms, please don't wash them. Because they are like sponges, they'll absorb some of that water. So when you bring them back from the supermarket or the greengrocer, all you need to do is just give them a bit of a brush with a pastry brush like this. So by doing that, you're cleaning them really well. So what I've done here is just given myself a bit of a head start and started to roughly chop the mushrooms. I've also preheated my pan. I'll add a good glug of olive oil and we're going to start frying them off. So we want about a tablespoon or so of olive oil, and then in with our mushrooms. And you want this pan to be quite hot, and you want to fry this for a good 3 to 4 minutes just so we get that lovely concentrated flavour out of the mushrooms. We will also want to take as much moisture out of the mushrooms so we're left with crisp pastry as we cook this in the oven. So mushrooms, we'll cook that off, and a good pinch of salt. Mushrooms love salt, and their true flavour really comes out after you've seasoned them with some salt. You can see how much they break down very quickly, and there's no moisture whatsoever in the pan. Now I'm going to return some onion and leek. So I've pre-cooked my onion and leek. Not too much colour on this. I just want to really soften them down so they can go in. We'll turn the heat off, and I'll also add some spinach to this. So the spinach needs to wilt down. So we'll add a big handful of that, and that's the base of our veggie mixture. You can see how good this is going to be for you too, because there's so many vegetables. And you can change up the spinach if you like. You could add some kale or some silver beet. Now what I'm going to do is just stir that in, allow that spinach to wilt down, and do let this cool completely before you start your pastry. Now, let's get onto the pastry while that cools down. I'm using some filo pastry. I've brought it out of the freezer. I've also just placed it into a clean, damp tea towel just so it doesn't dry out. So just give yourself lots of space when you start to prepare the filo pastry. It's just much easier to handle. We'll grab 1 layer of the filo. You can see how thin and delicate the layers are. You can almost see through it. Place that onto the board. We'll cover up the rest of the filo so it doesn't dry out. And I like to use butter for this, just tastes better, and also it's going to give it a lovely golden colour. So brush that onto the first sheet. Another piece of pastry, brush that, and then a third one. Ready to wrap the Spanakopita. Just a few more things in our filling. So some feta, lovely salty feta. I'm just going to crumble that in. You want it to be small little pieces. Cheese like feta and mushrooms are just best friends. It goes so nicely together. I'm also going to add about 100 grams of ricotta. I've got some buffalo ricotta here, so about half of this tub, and this is just going to help bind everything together. Okay, we'll use our spoon to mash it all up, and that is the most delicious filling. A little bit of an alternative to that classic flavour of just spinach and herbs. I love these mushrooms in here. All right, time to wrap this up. So we're going to add a few generous spoonfuls of our mixture on the bottom side of our pile of 3 pieces of filo. So we don't want to overfill it, because what I'm going to do is form this into a gorgeous coil or a snail-like shape. There are a few ways of doing Spanakopita. You could wrap this up and make individual ones. You could put it into a tray. I kind of like this version. So now I'm just going to spread that out just on the base and then carefully wrap it up to form a cylinder. Okay, a little more butter over this on all sides, even the seam side. And now we're going to wrap it up into a spiral. You can see why that pastry needs to stay moist so it doesn't crack as you roll that. So that's going to be the centre of our spanakopita. I'm using a springform tin just to keep it in its shape. We'll place the first part of the coil in, and now I'm going to continue the process. And instead of making a coil on the bench, what I'm going to do is wrap that cylinder around the first part of the filo pastry so we've got a lovely big snail-like shape. All right, last log ready to go, and you want it to fit quite snug into our springform tin. That looks very good. Okay, the last thing I like to do is just sprinkle on some nigella seeds. I love the nutty flavour of them, and it also looks really good. So a generous sprinkling of them over the top. And now this goes into the oven, 180 degrees, and this is going to cook for about 40 to 45 minutes or until golden brown. Well, this mushroom spanakopita looks really good, lovely and golden. Do allow it to cool in the tin for about 15 to 20 minutes before you take it out. And this is the beauty of a springform. Comes straight off like that. You can see how it's golden everywhere. I'll just grab a palette knife and we're going to try and transfer it over to a plate. Just scoop underneath it and then on it goes. How gorgeous is that? Now, the all-important mushrooms. Let's cut into this to have a look. Now, you can unravel the spanakopita if you like, or cut it into triangles, which is what I'm going to do. So, serrated knife works really well with this. And oh, listen to that crunchy pastry. I'll grab a plate and we'll lift that up. Ooh, and have a look at that, all that ricotta mushroom. It's still lovely and warm. And I like to serve this the Greek way with some tzatziki, a dollop on the side, and a hint of lemon. So just take a cheek off this. And there you go, a traditional Greek pastry, usually filled with spinach and herbs, but it works really, really well with earthy mushrooms. I've got 3 varieties of mushrooms in there, and it tastes so good, particularly with all that cheese, the feta and the ricotta. Yum.